the Educator Insights podcast. I'm your host, Olivia Lara-Gresty, and I'm excited to be joined today by our special guest, Ronald Lethcoe, a curriculum and instructional design specialist at Clover Park Technical College. Today, we will be discussing teaching the age of AI, how ChatGPT is reshaping the education landscape, and I cannot wait to hear Ronald's insights on the subject. As educators, we know that engaging our students is critical to their learning success. So, whether you're a teacher, curriculum designer, or anyone else in the education field, this episode is sure to provide valuable insights and strategies. Ronald, thanks so much for being here, and thanks to our listeners for tuning in. Let's dive in. So, Ronald, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in curriculum and instructional design?
Yes. First of all, thank you, Olivia, for having me on your podcast. I've listened to a couple episodes, and I think it's really helpful for the field. Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about my background to start off. So, my first foray into education started in 2011, and that's when I went to Korea to teach English as a second language to the Korean students out there. And I liked teaching the students, being in front of the classroom, teaching them English, letting them know the proper ways to say things. But after a couple years, I realized that my passion was not, standing up and instructing these students. My passion lied kind of behind the scenes, where I was focused on, I really enjoyed preparing the lesson plans, taking, whatever book that we have for the semester or whatever book we have for the year, and, dividing that up and kind of putting the curriculum together. What activities are we going to do for this? I believe that my focus, instead of, directly teaching, English, concepts, my focus was more on creating an environment for the students to feel comfortable and enjoy learning, and focusing instead of the specific topics, but how can we learn these specific topics, and like what's the way that the students can do this on their own instead of having someone tell them what to do. And so I realized that there was a time where I wanted to get my master's degree, and I had a choice between a master's degree in TESOL, teaching English to students of other languages, or I found out about a degree called instructional design. And so I looked into that. And in 2016, I joined San Diego State University's online program. They had a learning design and technology program, master's program. And so I got the information there, and I loved, the work that I did there. And so I took the information that I learned from that program. I applied it to the jobs that I had in Korea, and I was teaching elementary school. But then I also got a job teaching at a university, at an online university. And so I was able to take all of those things that I learned from that program and apply it directly to my teaching. And at some point, I just really, after about 10 years of teaching in front of students, it takes a lot of energy. I'm usually high energy, and I want, the students to have fun and be engaged. Instead of doing that directly, I decided to, focus full time on doing curriculum and instructional design. So that's where I am at now. I'm at Clover Park Technical College, working with the Teaching and Learning Center to try to improve the teaching of the faculty here.
Nice. And I really appreciate you actually sharing that full background, because I think that, in today's day and age, there are so many sort of windy paths that we take in our careers. And it's always helpful to hear how, certain experiences that someone had helped shape that. And I think even you sharing about choosing to get your master's, thinking about that choice is a choice that a lot of educators are thinking on it there, a lot of just professionals overall. And so I do really appreciate you walking us through each of those steps. And, I have had a chance, if anyone out there would like to see some of Ronald's English teaching, I've seen a couple of your videos, and I can definitely see that you're mentioning that high energy, that engagement. And I can see in your lessons that you really do try to keep it fun. I think, as a teacher myself, I know that students don't learn anything if they're kind of closed off emotionally. They're not ready. They're not going to actually intake that information. So I love that you're spending so much of your career really focusing on that enjoyment piece to help your students really succeed. And I wanted to just ask you, thinking about, you've worked in all these different fields, or I should say fields within education. And I'm curious if there are any particular challenges that you faced in your work as a curriculum and instructional design specialist and how you might have addressed these challenges.
So this job is that I'm currently at is kind of my dream job because we there's a multitude of projects that we're working on at any given time. And I'm the kind of person that likes to have a lot to do. And, if I start on one thing and, I kind of reach the, limit on that project, I might switch over to another project. And I mean, for some people, that might be very challenging if you have a lot of different, things going on at once. I prefer that. I like to, have something to do at all times. So I would say I don't directly have a challenge here in terms of that job. Coming back to America after being in Korea for so long, that's a kind of a different, that's kind of like a reverse culture shock. That's mainly what's making it a little bit challenging for me to work out here. But that's just kind of, the difference in cultures from Korea to America. And so trying to figure that out, that's where I'm kind of focusing my energy right now.
Yeah, and I definitely wanted to ask about that because I think just, I've taught in a couple of different schools, and even then, the culture of a school is really impactful on your day-to-day experience, the student energy, their perspective. And so, as someone with teaching experience both in the US and abroad, and not to mention multiple different age groups, I'm curious what major cultural differences you've noticed between the teachers and students globally, and if there's any maybe lessons that educators can learn from those differences.
Well, I would say that the main difference that I noticed coming from Korea to America in terms of teachers is that in Korea, the someone who's a teacher or a professor, they're very respected. Like it's a profession that is, held in high regard with all the people there. They know that the lessons that the students get are going to impact their lives and hopefully change them for the better. I don't have any like specific advice for the educators, but I think just as a culture, it's something that we need to shift towards is taking this profession of teaching and adding the necessary respect to it because as I said, it's a gateway to success. So all the people out there that have the nice jobs right now, you probably have that job because had a teacher that told you what you needed to know and to be successful. For the students, I would say in America, the focus is more on the 21st century skills, stuff like creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, communication. I would say in Korea, I try to, bring this into the classroom. I made sure to at least try to add one of those C's for every one of my lessons. I want to try to make it creative. I want to make sure that the students are thinking critically, working together, communicating, and I think those 21st century skills in America, that's I would say they focus more on those skills in America. And I would say that as long as we keep those at the forefront, then if you're a teacher, uh, those are going to be the skills as we move into this, AI, the time of AI, and everything is changing, and education, and all, pretty much the whole world is starting to change. Those skills are going to be the ones that are the most important. That's going to separate you from the pack.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that statement. And I think just thinking about, my students that didn't like group projects and those types of things, we know that every student is individual, but, you mentioned there's multiple C's. There's creativity, critical thinking, communicating. So I think encouraging students to kind of find their area in those within those spaces that they feel that they can really excel in, I totally agree is an important step that, that students can look into and that teachers can continue to work towards. Um, yeah, and I think, we definitely do want to touch and kind of dive into our topics today on the future of technology and the education industry. And I know that, we had spoken before the podcast a little bit about your background in studio art and thinking about, we know that there is lots of AI these days to help with arts. And I think that I would just love just your thoughts on, AI in the arts and kind of what artists can be doing these days to either utilize AI or kind of what to look out for, just since you have that some of that artistic background.
So, in terms of art, I think that we have to rethink about the way that we produce art because with the advent of AI and these websites and apps like Midjourney, I would say that I do believe that they'll always have a need for kind of the traditional style of art. And especially art is very unique because art relates to emotions and, someone's inner being and, putting their emotions to the canvas or, to the sculpture. Um, it's going to be hard to kind of replicate that. Um, so I do believe that there always is going to be some sort of desire from the masses for that kind of thing. So, at the same time, I do think that just like whenever the paintbrush was invented, so a bunch of people are looking at this, oh, this doesn't count as art, this is kind of like cheating, you have all the colors here, and it's the same story every time a new technology comes out. And so when it comes out like that, oh, there's a new program website that you can go to and it can make art, really nice high quality art for you in less than a minute. I of course there's room for alarm, right? There's people that are going to be worried, but we'll probably get into this later. But I think kind of the theme that I want to hit on about this age of AI is that as long as you have the skill, like if I studied art and I know color theory, I know composition, I know the different kinds of brush strokes and atmospheric effects, then I'm going to bring that lens to whatever Midjourney creates. And if I type in a prompt that is very specific to what I'm looking for, that's going to turn out much better than someone who's just kind of going in without any prior knowledge. So I think that having that base, having that knowledge within, and bringing that to these AI tools is going to make you that much more successful when using it.
Yeah, I think that that's a great, connection between the the use of AI in the arts, but then there's also all these other technologies that we'll definitely be diving into. And so I agree. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves here. There's lots of topics to cover, and they're all connected, right? So it makes sense that we're thinking about just you know really honing in on certain skills and being able to anyone who has those skills will be in a good position to bring them to whatever technology they're using. I liked your analogy of the paintbrush. I think it's the same conversation as the calculator was. It's not real math. And so, we've seen this time and time again. And so with that, I definitely want to jump, really into the heart of our conversation here, thinking about what you've been seeing working with teachers. In what ways has ChatGPT changed the educational landscape for teachers and students alike?
Well, I think that we're kind of at the beginning stage. So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily changed, a lot so far. Um, but definitely in the future, as the collective, as a society for one, but especially as teachers and instructors, both on the the primary level and the secondary higher ed level, we have to rethink the way that we teach. And so it's going to be a lot of work. It's a lot of work for the students, but it's going to have to be a lot of effort and work put in by the teachers because as I said, and as everyone's saying, this is the next kind of revolution. You had the industrial revolution, we had the advent of the internet, and then now this is this next step, I would say, in human evolution almost. It's important for the teachers to kind of be on top of that, and it's going to change. I feel like it's going to change, whether we want it or not. And I would say the start, of the change is just kind of learning about it, and that's why I'm happy that there's a podcast like this that will hopefully, some people don't even know what ChatGPT is. I'll ask them and I'll say, hey, I did this in ChatGPT. And they say, what did you do? And I say, oh, it's the AI thing. And so, like I said, it's just, starting to, blossom. But I think that staying on top of it is maybe the most important thing that we can do.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny to hear that, and very real to hear that people don't even know what it is because I think, you know, given that I'm more in the technology space now, that's, what half of, if not more of the conversations are about. But then we have, I can think back to when I was an educator not too long ago and you're dealing with so much every day. It makes sense that this is just one other thing on your plate. And so definitely it's going to be a space in which I think we're going to need leaders to really bring it into schools and, support teachers as they try to support their students in a space. And I'm curious, just maybe from your experience, what kinds of teaching responsibilities have you found ChatGPT to be the most useful for? Maybe grading, lesson prep, student correspondence. Just could you walk us through how you utilize it in your day to day?
Well, yeah, I think that if you take the time to watch some videos or listen to some podcast about it, you can see multiple, almost infinite applications for teaching, as an instructor. And then also, we'll probably get into it from the student side, but some of the things that I specifically use it for is I'm currently a professor for a course, and I have the students that have questions for me, and I usually, before ChatGPT, I will go in and, I look at their question and I'm not sure exactly what the answer is. I need to look up, maybe it's a grammar question. I want to give them the specific, grammar rule and maybe some examples about how to use it. And I know this stuff, right? Like I have the experience. I can go through, I can think about it, but that's going to use up so much like mental energy. I have to, do the intro. Hello, thank you for the question. I have to type all that out. And then I have to, research the grammar point to make sure that it's concise. I don't want to just, oh, you have to do this just because that's how we usually do it. And so, what I do now is I'll take the comment in full, throw it into ChatGPT, give it some instruction. Oh, I want you to give this, I want you to respond politely to the student, and then sign it off with my name, and then give them some examples of, whatever problem that they're trying to face. And some person might say like, oh, that's very impersonal. Why is the, machine doing all the work? But I would have done the work anyways, right? Like what I use it now for is it gives me the response, right? Oh, it's got the hello, it's got the thank you for, asking me this question. It's got the full explanation, and then it's got the little sign off if you have any more questions, and then, it signs it off my name. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm not just going to copy and paste that back over. I'm going to go through and look through and say, okay, this is a good point. This is what, this is what I want to focus on. This has nothing to do with anything. So I'm going to take that out. And then I have the response in a fraction of the time that it would have taken to do it, myself. And, it's time thing. It's also a mental energy thing. Like it takes a lot of time to make, oh, do I need to do this? I have to add this, typing out those words, making sure everything's spelled correctly. I can type to ChatGPT and all my words can be misspelled, but somehow through the magic of large language models, it provides a response that makes sense. So
Yeah.
that one, the feedback, I use it to help make announcements for my students in the online course because, once again, I've already made the course. I've already put together the curriculum, the slides. And, what I do is I take the information from the slides and I say, hey, this is what we're going to be covering this week, the list of bullet points. Can you give me an announcement for this class? And just make sure that you include a brief summary of what we're covering and if there's any assignments or quizzes that we need to do. And then it spits out a nice, polite announcement that I can then, give to my students.
Yeah, that's great. And I definitely think, just thinking at both those sections, what a lot of you're describing is there's an important part for manual review. as you mentioned, it's not just copy paste, but I think if a student's asking a question that they maybe could have asked Google, because we know it happens all the time, right? They're looking for some assurance that I know Google has 15 million answers, or where, the internet's going to provide me with a lot of options. I want to know what's in the context of this course, or just kind of what applies here. And so having someone like you, their professor, who's actually going through and manually reviewing, saying this is actually the information I would pick out, and that kind of gives them a sense of assurance there. So I totally see that, just maintaining and even benefiting, hopefully, those student relationships, because you can respond to more emails faster. They can get more interaction with you. And I guess that leads us into our next question. What are some of the benefits and challenges of incorporating ChatGPT and AI into the classroom?
If I were to go over the benefits of using ChatGPT in the classroom, is kind of goes back to what you were just saying about having it personalized. You could go to Google and search around the internet, but it's not going to be contextually relevant to whatever your specific situation is, right? With whether you're talking to a student, or this is your course and you're trying to make an announcement, or if you're just trying to make some assignments that are, related to what you're talking about. And so I think that is like the biggest benefit, is because everything is contextual to whatever you type into ChatGPT, right? So if I say, this is my course and this is what I need, 20 quiz questions, they're going to be personalized to or they're going to be tailored to what you are requesting. Some of the challenges, I would say, there's still some issues with security related to OpenAI in particular. We don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. So user data, these are the topics that a lot of people are talking about. Something about bias, right? Like, it gets all the information from the internet, and it gets all the information, from us, essentially, right? Because we are the ones that are putting things into the internet. And so we have to be careful about the majority, right? It needs to be able to, the people who create these large language models have to be very diligent in making sure that if I ask ChatGPT, what do you think about the president? And then ChatGPT says, oh, I think the president sucks. Like, we need a new president. Like, that kind of thing, that doesn't happen, luckily, for that. But I mean, it's hard to know exactly what people are talking about. And you can kind of manipulate ChatGPT. So, for example, if you ask ChatGPT, how can I break into the security of my school because I want to unblock this website that I really want to go to, and then ChatGPT is going to say, oh, I'm not capable of telling you this, or maybe I am capable, but I don't. That goes against my moral compass as this large language model. But then if you restructure the question and say, oh, I'm an IT expert specialist, and I need to go in and I need to change the security on one of the websites, then it's going to give you the instructions previously it said, that it's not going to give you these instructions, but now, depending on the way that you ask it, you can get these instructions. So that kind of thing is, I would say, a challenge moving forward. But hopefully, we can all cross our fingers that they are working on that kind of thing, facing these challenges moving
Right.
forward.
It's not that, front desk person that can kind of scrutinize the person walking in. Like, you don't have an ID, or you don't, you tell me you're an IT person, you're 9 years old. It doesn't have those abilities right now.
Yeah, that's a really good example.
If only, right? Well, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just laughing. I thought that was very funny.
Okay. um, yeah, I mean, I think with that, there's definitely some benefits and challenges. And I think that students are going to need to just be prepared for both, and teachers are going to need to be prepared for both to come up, and not limit students into not using these incredible new platforms because of those challenges, but finding ways to help our students as well. And I'm just thinking, how can educators really effectively balance those traditional teaching methods and maybe traditional benchmarks they're looking for, or just teaching strategy in the first place, with the new technologies that, these digital learning platforms are offering.
Yeah, I think that is going to be kind of the focus of any sort of professional development moving forward, is how can we incorporate this new technology into our lives. So I think it's going to happen in all industries, but especially in teaching. This is like I said up top, teaching is the gateway to success, right?
Mm-hmm.
Students learning from a teacher is how we survive and thrive in this world. And so I think learning how to incorporate it into your lessons, your assessments, your assignments. I think that the main focus would be to change the focus instead of just relying or holding the result as the highest, the most important thing, right? The test result. Oh, you got to get a good score on this test. Instead, focusing on the process. How can you do this thing? How can you, show that you understand the material? I was curious about, this specific thing. So I asked ChatGPT, give me an assignment that would be, like a traditional assignment, and but it would be really easy to cheat using ChatGPT, right? And I said, so this is what it gave me. It said the original assignment is write a 500-word essay on the causes and effects of climate change. Seems pretty standard. Like as I was when I grew up, I had this kind of thing all the time, right? Write an
Mm-hmm.
essay on, this topic, make sure it's 5 paragraphs, there's an intro, conclusion. We all know that one, right? So
Mm-hmm.
instead of just giving that as the assignment, I said, can you give me an assignment that would include ChatGPT to assist in completing the assignment? In the same way that a calculator would assist you in doing some math,
Mm-hmm.
how can we use ChatGPT to assist us? And so I won't give the whole thing, but it did give about 10 different steps of what you can do. But basically, you would use ChatGPT, like students would use it in the classroom to gather information about the causes and effects of climate change, right? So it's going to give us those things. And as humans learning about this, oh, what is that? What is it? I don't know what the plastic island is. Okay, can you give me more information about that? So you can continue to that's the good thing about ChatGPT is it's a conversation. It's not just one Google result. If you want some more specific information, you just have to ask it. And so it's using ChatGPT to kind of brainstorm. It's kind of like a brainstorming on steroids, if you will. It's got all this information and it's contextual to what you're requesting. And then once you have those ideas, you're going to make your own outline, right? And then now that you have kind of this guiding light, then you can go in and you can fill out the outline. You can write the essay in class, where the teacher is there and, making sure that you're not using ChatGPT to write the whole thing for you. Sharing whatever you wrote with a peer, having them go in, oh yeah, this makes sense. Oh, what is this? This doesn't have anything to do with, climate change. Because if anybody's experienced ChatGPT before, you know that sometimes it comes up with these grandiose like ideas that don't make any sense, but having somebody this goes back to that collaboration, right? Communicating with another person and then critically thinking, does this make sense? Okay, so using this kind of assignment, you're focusing instead on content generation, like thinking about these ideas, and instead you're taking the ideas that you thought of, and you're kind of fine tuning it and trying to make it and mold it into whatever is going to be helpful for you.
Yeah, I think that there's, like you said, I mean, that's the best step, right? Is just educators can use these new products and technologies to go to search it, to figure out what can I actually do to create assignments like this that will support my students in. We know that they can cheat. I love how you actually searched how can students cheat on an assignment, like an easily cheatable one, and then how can you work around that. So helping students kind of, you know, I think that naming that cheating happens is kind of one of the first steps to for all the students to kind of realize that we're all aware. And so now what's the real purpose there? And how can we actually create an assignment where you're going to learn, but we're not going to, I think, ban this technology so that you can't actually utilize it. So I love that you were thinking about assignments that will actually help students utilize these technologies for sure.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think that kind of brings us into our next question I was thinking about, which is, I know you have a lot of experience with English language teaching English language learners. And I was curious if you anticipate any changes in student motivation to learn new languages as some of these new AI technologies become more prevalent.
I would say that, especially for learning any language, whether it's English or if you're trying to learn Korean or Spanish, ChatGPT is almost a godsend in this sense because you have your teacher who knows as much as your teacher knows, and maybe you go to a tutor and the tutor knows a lot and they can help you out. But ChatGPT is basically like, it's a tutor for you that doesn't judge you, right? You're not going to get any judgment. Like if you, for example, it depends on the teacher, right? There's a lot of good teachers out there. They might say, oh, they might encourage you one way. Another teacher might say, oh, this is terrible, right? So, we've all had our experiences with good and bad teachers. But ChatGPT, from my experience, is kind of this neutral being, right? It doesn't judge you. It doesn't say, oh, you can't do the past tense that way, or you should remember, this form of the verb. It's always available, right? So you only really meet your teacher or tutor when they have the time, right? And so think about if you're, trying to do your work at a late hour, there's not going to be a chance for you to meet with a tutor or a teacher at that time. And then lastly, ChatGPT it's patient, right? And it's learning from you in the same way that you're learning from it. And I think that it's only going to get more focused in the future. It seems like everyone is making up new apps, new websites, new tools. You can just go on any sort of like educator board, or follow people on LinkedIn, and they'll have, oh, this is how this is how we're using it in our classroom. And I just want to give a shout out to Khan Academy. We all know Khan Academy is great. I use it with my students. I also use it with my son. And at the time of recording, about a week ago, there was a TED Talk given by Khan himself, and he was talking about this new, how they're going to pivot their platform. Instead of having just the videos, they're going to implement GPT-4 to act as this tutor, right? And they've trained it specifically on the lessons that they have on their website. And it's going to be your tutor, it's going to be your guidance counselor, your academic coach. It's going to be anything that you want it to be in the terms of education. And I think that kind of thing is going to be the future.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a lot of space there for using these technologies. I think the tutoring element is super accurate. And I think, a lot of that motivation element we're going to still need those teachers around to get the students to actually use the tutors and, families involved, all of that. I definitely think that'll help with, language learning, but also, as you mentioned, Khan Academy math, lots of different subjects there. And I think, as we're thinking about students having the availability of all these online tutors and ChatGPT and just all of this new technology, I know we started to touch on it earlier, but I was hoping you could just share, how would you advise students to develop their skills for this new normal workplace where AI is going to be relevant?
So my advice is to just try to stay on top of the new trends. I know it seems like there's a new tool or an update to ChatGPT every month or every week, really. And just trying to stay knowledgeable, right? We want our students, the whole purpose of them to go to school is to gain knowledge that's going to help them be successful. We also have to take the time to educate ourselves so that we can be successful. If you don't know the term prompt engineering, my guess for the word of the year is going to be prompt engineering, because the ability to give clear instructions and interact with the AI to make it do what you want it to do is, I think that's going to be kind of the new normal, right? Is being able to interact with AI and then have it do whatever you ask it to do in the capacity that it can. And so I think that is going to be probably the most important skill for educators to hone in on. And then as for students, it's the same thing. Like hopefully you have a teacher that is can kind of see the writing on the wall and see that this is going to be a new big thing. And hopefully they can utilize it in their classroom. But if they don't, just trying to find a way to experience it and get in there and have a conversation with ChatGPT, push its limits, see what you can do, and if you can use it to help you, not to cheat, right? You don't want to use it to cheat. That if you're cheating using ChatGPT, you're just cheating yourself because you're not getting the information that you need, and you're not showing that the information that you've acquired. But using it, as we said, as a tool, it's a very helpful tool for everyone. It's got its problems, and hopefully whoever's working on it is working on fixing these problems. But I would say just exposure and trying to stay informed is going to be the most important thing for the future.
Yeah, and I think that that translates both for teachers and students themselves. I think staying on trends and, it's very easy to get lost in them. So I think just having kind of that keeping pace with it without allowing students to feel overwhelmed by it is going to be a challenge that educators need to take on for sure, and frankly are facing themselves. And I'm curious, you were mentioning some of your colleagues or maybe some people have not really been utilizing ChatGPT, but that's something that you have used. And so how can educators out there stay up to date with the latest developments in AI and digital learning to enhance their teaching ability?
Well, I would say that the best resources for me in terms of learning about ChatGPT, I actually found out about it first in LinkedIn. I'm sure you've been on LinkedIn. I'm sure all the listeners probably have a LinkedIn, but finding voices that speak about this topic, that show how they're using it, and giving examples, specific examples, kind of like how I did earlier. I think finding people on LinkedIn, uh, there's plenty of groups on Facebook. I find that the Facebook groups for instructional design, also educator Facebook groups and teacher Facebook groups in your area, those are going to be helpful. And the conversations in there, they're already having, like you said, probably like half of the conversations are about AI and how we're going to use this as teachers. And it's good to be able to hear directly from other teachers and be able to interact with them. Instagram, TikTok, it depends on, I would say social media. Everybody likes to hate on social media, but you can get some good information. A lot of the things, especially I'm trying to experiment with using ChatGPT along with Midjourney to create images. And so I could go in and I can try to figure it out myself, or I can look at these other people that have done it already. Like, YouTube, if you type in AI, teaching AI tools into YouTube, you're going to find videos where it's going to show you kind of step by step about what you can do, or you're going to find channels that will give you the up-to-date news. As I was saying, you want to try to stay up to date. There's channels out there that will say, this is what is happening now, and this is what it could affect us in the future. This is how it could affect us in the future.
Yeah, I think that just, speaking to your point earlier as well, I think just we all need to make sure that we are lifelong learners. And I think in my experience, a lot of teachers you mentioned LinkedIn. I don't think as many teachers are on LinkedIn as other professions. And I think that it is a great place to be, no association there, but I just think that it is kind of a place to keep up with trends and just being able to, as you were mentioning, find the groups and the voices that really speak to you and that feel influential in positive ways, whether that's whatever social media platform you're using, any news channel, is just kind of finding the right voices there is really helpful and definitely a useful tool there. I think overall, there's a lot to be said for what's happening in the classrooms with ChatGPT. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, we're really only seeing the beginning of it. There's definitely a lot more that will be, taking place as the landscape changes. But there's a lot to look forward to, and I'm curious to see what happens. So that will conclude this episode of Educator Insights. I really hope you found our discussion on teaching in the age of AI and how ChatGPT is reshaping the education landscape insightful and helpful in your work as educators, those in the technology space, and all those who are helping students out there.
Sure, I as well.
Educator. I want to give a big thank you to our special guest, Ronald, for sharing his expertise and insights with us today. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Of course, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more educators with our content. Also, don't forget to share your thoughts and experiences on today's topic using the hashtag #MagicEducatorInsights on social media. Thanks again for joining us. We look forward to bringing you more engaging conversations on the next episode of Educator Insights.